The oldest art in human history was never meant to be seen. And that's what makes it so strange. Because some of these paintings were found deep inside caves that are difficult to reach even today. To see them, you have to travel hundreds of meters underground, through narrow passages so tight that you have to exhale just to squeeze through. Places where no natural light exists. No food, no shelter, no obvious reason for a human being to be there at all. And yet, 30,000 to 40,000 years ago, ancient humans went there on purpose. Not to live, not to hunt, but to paint. Armed with nothing more than a tiny flame the size of a thumb, they entered complete darkness and covered the walls with animals so detailed and lifelike that when scientists first discovered them, many refused to believe they could have been created by prehistoric humans. But that's not the real mystery. The real mystery isn't how they painted them, it's why. If these paintings were never meant to be seen, why create them in the first place? When archaeologists first started finding cave paintings in the late 1800s, they assumed the artists had lived in the caves. It made sense. The paintings were near entrances, in chambers that looked like they could have been living spaces. There were hearths, tools, animal bones. The obvious story was ancient people lived in caves, and while they were there, they decorated the walls. Simple. Practical. Wrong. In 1879, a young girl named Maria looked up at a cave ceiling in northern Spain and said something to her father that would change history. Her father was an archaeologist. He had been staring at the cave floor for months, looking for ancient tools and bones. But Maria was 8 years old, and she looked up. What she saw on that ceiling stopped her completely. Massive animals, bison and horses, painted in red and black, covering the entire roof of the cave. So vivid, so detailed, so alive, that her father assumed they were forgeries. They were not forgeries. They were 36,000 years old. But the real shock came later, as explorers pushed deeper into these caves, past the obvious living areas, into the dark heart of the rock itself. What they found there didn't match the story at all. Deep inside a cave in France, there is a painting of a rhinoceros that is 32,000 years old. To reach it, you have to walk more than 2 miles underground, through passages so low you crawl, through chambers so cold your breath fogs in front of your face. The person who painted it carried no torch, just a small lamp filled with animal fat, a flame about the size of your thumb. That was the only light between them and absolute darkness. And they did it anyway. Researchers have found cave art at depths that would have taken hours to reach, in areas of caves that show no signs of anyone ever living or sleeping there. No camps, no tools, no food remains. Just paintings. Someone went to extraordinary lengths, in complete isolation, with almost no light, to make something in a place they knew no one else would ever come. Think about that. For these people, darkness wasn't an absence of light. It was a destination. They chose it. They traveled into it deliberately, carrying the tiniest possible flame, to do something that had no practical purpose whatsoever. The dating evidence is just as strange. The oldest confirmed cave paintings are around 40,000 years old. Some may be older. That puts them right at the moment when modern humans were first arriving in Europe, encountering Neanderthals and beginning to radically change their behavior. But the paintings themselves show a level of artistic sophistication that shouldn't exist yet. These aren't crude stick figures. These are animals rendered with anatomical accuracy, with shading, with movement, with an understanding of form that wouldn't be matched in surface art for thousands of years. In Chauvet Cave in France, discovered in 1994, the paintings include overlapping animals, perspective, and techniques like scraping the rock to create a three-dimensional effect. The artists used multiple pigments, mixed them, applied them with brushes, pads, and even blowing through hollow bones to create spray effects. This was not primitive. This was a developed artistic tradition, and yet they chose to practice it in the most inconvenient, dangerous, and useless location possible. In 2014, a team led by archaeologist Jean Klotz published a comprehensive study of deep cave art across Europe. Their conclusion was clear. The paintings were not made by people who lived in those deep chambers. The caves were used for rituals, not residence. The art was placed in specific locations, often in acoustic hotspots where echoes are strongest, or where natural formations resembled animals already. The artists were selecting spots based on properties of the space itself, not convenience. But here's what the science really says. These people knew these caves intimately. They knew passages that branched and rejoined. They knew which chambers were stable. They knew how far they could go before oxygen became dangerous. This wasn't random exploration. This was deliberate, repeated, ritualized movement into the dark. And they did it generation after generation for thousands of years, painting over older works, adding new layers, maintaining a connection to spaces that had no practical function at all. So why? The obvious theories fall apart quickly. Theory 1, they were hiding from predators. But predators don't go deep into caves either. And if danger was the concern, why bring paint and lamps? Why spend hours creating art? Theory 2, the paintings were for the animals themselves, hunting magic. But many of the animals painted weren't even species that lived in those regions. Some are mythical hybrids. And why the extreme depth? If you're doing hunting magic, you want the spirits to see it. You don't hide it where no one will ever find it. Theory 3, the caves were sacred because they were dangerous. This gets closer, but danger alone doesn't explain the artistic investment. People don't spend hundreds of hours perfecting paintings in a place they're only visiting out of fear. The real answer might be stranger than any of these. Here's what we know about the human brain. It's wired for meaning. We don't just see patterns, we need them to matter. We don't just experience the world, we narrate it. The cave painters weren't just decorating, they were engaging in what might be the oldest form of what we now call art for art's sake. They were doing something because it felt important, because it connected them to something beyond survival. But there's another layer. Think about what it takes to go deep into a dark cave with a tiny flame. You're confronting primal fear. The dark is where our ancestors were most vulnerable. To choose to go there deliberately with a purpose, that's not just bravery, that's transformation. They weren't just painting animals, they were painting in the place where the world disappears and something else emerges. The darkness wasn't an obstacle, it was the medium. Modern humans still do this. We go into dark rooms to meditate. We sit in silent darkness to pray. We seek out isolation to create. The cave painters were doing exactly what we do when we turn off the lights and look inward. Except they were doing it in physical darkness, in a place that physically represented the inner world. We tell ourselves that civilization is what made us human, that cities, writing, technology are what lifted us from animal instinct to conscious mind. But these paintings say otherwise. 30,000 years before the first city, before the first word was written, humans were crawling into the dark to create meaning. They were making art, not because it helped them survive, but because they needed to express something that had no practical use at all. That thing, that need to create meaning in the darkness, is still in you. It's why you watch videos like this one, not to learn survival skills, but to understand why you are the way you are. The cave painters didn't leave instructions. They left a question. What are you willing to go into the dark to create? The next time you feel that pull towards something that doesn't make practical sense, something beautiful, something meaningful, something that only you understand, remember them. They went 2 miles underground with a thumb-sized flame to paint animals on a wall that no one would ever see. And you think your creative impulse is strange? It's not strange. It's ancient. It's human. And it's still alive in you, right now, in this completely lit room, wondering what it all means.